way back in 1988. There weren't any pamphlets. There wasn't anybody you could ask. All we had was Sam Kinison to show us the way. He told us when you eat a woman's pussy that you want to start licking the alphabet, and by the time you get to the capital T, she'll be putty in your hands. It's time for an updated version of that. And this is inspired by a really interesting podcast that I heard a couple of weeks ago. To be determined whether or not I tell anybody about it. We don't know if we want it related. So joining me today is an individual from upstate New York and a fine young man in his early 30s, living the life. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing good, Lehman. I always enjoy having a conversation with you. And we've been talking about this, and it's that episode I did with Pepper, I guess, kind of inspired this whole conversation.
100.
And it drives me nuts that so many men are opposed to the idea of going down on their woman. I just can't wrap my head around it. But, it's hypocritical, too, because, they want her to go down on him, but they don't want to return the favor. Now, I don't know. Maybe I was just raised different. Not that my parents raised me to, eat pussy or anything like that. But, it's a give and a take. Every relationship, there's always got to be a give and a take. And if you're in a sexual relationship with someone, whatever that may be, you got to please your partner. And it really, I like I said, I just can't wrap my head around the fact that some men just don't want to do that.
Right. Now we're talking about two consenting adults. And I find it hypocritical as well that, you want to demand service like an asshole. You may not even wash your junk. And hot tip here for all the young guys out there. If you like having your dick sucked, wash that motherfucker in soap and water every once in a while. If it's clean, you're 9 times you're ahead of the game and more likely to get service if it doesn't smell like ass. Okay, these are some just common sense things that I thought everybody did. You want to ask your wife for a blowjob? Go take a shower and come out and bada boom, bada bing. You got it going on, right? But I've heard from the women that I've been with, that's not even a common thing. Like, truckers get off the road after being in a truck for 18 hours, get out and want their wife to give them a blowjob. I could think of a lot better things to do with my time, right?
Exactly. And again, it's just like the common sense behind it. You would think that people would have basic hygiene and whatnot, but it's not always there. But just a little tip too, there are a lot of nice essential oils out there that do not burn the skin. If you want to go that route, you can make yourself smell pleasant, and there's some aromatherapy there as well. But yeah, it just, the whole idea of like oral sex and just in general, it's like, and of course we're talking about consenting adults and everything like that, but just the fact that there are individuals, and I guess women could do this too, where they like hold out and whatnot, but it's mostly men I've interacted with that are just, I've noticed too that it's a lot of, I guess, ethnic men, a lot of black guys, a lot of Hispanic, Puerto Rican types that I've talked to that are like very against this. And it just, not to make this a race issue or anything like that, but it's just interesting, the different culture about it,
Yeah. I mean, I'm not necessarily going to get into those weeds because truthfully, they don't get much wider than me. All right. I can only speak from my experience. But there are some just simple things, right? Literally, every woman I have made orgasm with my mouth has been what I affectionately call a repeat offender. She comes back for more. And if you enjoy sex, there's no better way to have more sex than to make a woman come before you even think about taking care of yourself. Believe me, that small act will separate you from the herd by miles.
100%. 100%. It's making a lasting impression, I guess, is the best way you can say it. But there's so much that goes into that as well. Like you said, don't satisfy yourself first. That's part of the fun.
Yeah.
Kind of, what do the kids call it now? Edging or whatever, just
right.
Build up to it, have fun, because like in all reality, I don't care how much of a stud you are, you're not going to last that long in the sack.
Right.
If you can get a good 10 minutes realistically, and maybe some people are blessed more than me. I don't know, but you got to make the thing last. You got to just have fun with it. And it's like, I think a lot of it comes from fear too. A lot of men don't want to do this out of fear that they don't know what they're doing or whatnot, but just try it.
Some of the more intimate moments that I've had with a woman is, like, say, I don't know her body, right? And most men don't know this, but women's, the nervous system that makes up the clitoris, that gives them the sensation, it literally can be in several spots in the vaginal area, not just what we old timers call the button. Like there are some women that little space underneath the hood just north of the clitoris, they really enjoy having that stimulated. And you don't necessarily go into it knowing that. And so, it's a good practice to like ask what your partner likes, tell what gets you off, what do you know that's worked for you in the past, and then enjoy experimenting.
100%. I was going to say that too. Like everyone's different. Everyone's got their kinks. Everyone's got their G spots, as they call it. But just open communication. It really boils down to open communication. That's the biggest thing. And I'm no sex expert or anything like that. I've had my fair share of enjoyment throughout life, but it's just, it's amazing how many women have not experienced orgasms because of the people they're with, and how many men are unwilling to do that for them. It's just, it's crazy to me, man. And that's part of the fun, man, exploring. Mm-hmm. Now I'm in a committed relationship now, but still you find new things to do. You find more. So I'm not like out here advocating go out and just, sleep with a ton of different women, but just be, open-minded to it. Yeah.
The one that you're with, be 100 with that person. Go all in. Face first, nose first, go all in, brother.
Literally.
Yes.
You should be like a sniper crawling in there.
Now, for these guys who like maybe dating a woman who came from a home that was really like kind of super, kind of like sex is taboo, and maybe she is inexperienced, maybe even a virgin. I've actually used this 2 times now, where I watched a show called The Vagina Monologues with these women. And it literally helped them get past barriers in their mind so that they could have an orgasm shortly after watching that. It allowed them to realize that maybe the issues with intimacy that they were having are far more universal than they thought. And even just that allows them to relax enough to let a seasoned professional such as myself take care of business.
Yeah, and again, it's so interesting because I was just listening to your episode with Abby there about the dream work and everything, and the trauma that people have built up. And I know people have sexual trauma. I'm not belittling that at all, but
why not?
Just I had a point I was going to make. Oh, it was because she was talking about like, in the dream world, how you can like heal these things and stuff.
Yeah.
And this is off topic, but it's so weird. I had a dream last night that I shaved my beard, but I didn't cut my hair, and it was weird. But I had this strange pain in between my shoulder blades, where it was like I couldn't crack my back, and that was like the whole plot of this dream was me trying to crack my back, and it just triggered in my head thinking about this that I got to look up what that meridian is,
right?
And I'm sure we can tie that all in together with the orgasms and whatnot, because I'm sure people don't. I'm sure there's some type of block, but I was going to say, like with your partner, you can get over those things. Like, have you tried meditating? I'm asking you this, Lehman, like meditating or having some type of like, I don't know if it's tantric or whatever, just like that spiritual connection to the sex, because don't get me wrong, everyone loves to have just rough, wild sex every, now and again, but sometimes the intimacy behind it, the spiritual connection of like the two bodies coming together, the masculine and the feminine, or, whatever you're into, but, so yeah, I think it can be a healing process as well.
So in the beginning of a relationship, I think it's really important to have that exploratory phase where you're not in a feverish pitch every single time. You're going to have those moments because the lust and the love is new and it's burning out of control, and you just want to, smash cheeks, but mix it up. So like, you can have your quick hitter, but you can have like the 3-act play where you like really make it something special. You and I, we love to feed people. Well, give a woman a good meal, give her, set and setting, just like taking mushrooms, do set and setting, get some music she likes, not what you like, put what she likes on, and some fragrances. Women love fragrances, go out of your way to make it a production, man. And you will be amazed how that flower opens up for you. And if there is some sort of trauma like that, taking it slowly, really connecting with the person, taking time to look each other in the eye at different points. It's important because women want to be loved for them, not just their vagina. I know that's probably a hot take for some meatheads out there. They're human beings.
Right. And like you said, it's amazing. And I don't want this to sound, you get German Shepherds to guard the house, but I think someone would walk right through the door and they'd be fine. But someone walks a little shitty dog out there, they're all over it. They're
I hear you, man.
But yeah, what I was saying is like with the food, it's all about the intention. Same thing with the sex. If you're just, because I've been caught in this trap too, where you like, I'm just going to please her so I can get off. It doesn't work.
No,
it doesn't work. No. It's like you're not gonna get to that point because your mindset is not. You're just like, I want to get this over with, so I can get what I want. You have to, in a sense, drop the ego for a minute, let yourself, and just be all in that act. And that goes for anything, whether you're eating pussy, cooking a meal, doing art, getting through your day job, whatever it is. Like you got to have the right intention with it.
And I think that's becoming more and more important as people realize how fake and insincere certain aspects of our society truly are. And people are going to gravitate toward authenticity, right? And that's especially in relationships. I think that's one of the reasons why you and I get along so well, is that, we're just coming from where we're at. What we say is what we mean. And women have a heightened sense of intuition. There's a reason why they call it women's intuition. And they know when you're bullshitting. And I think subconsciously, just everything tightens up or blocks the energy flow that is needed in order to obtain a wonderful orgasm.
Yeah. There's so much that goes into it. And like, people get frustrated or, like women, the classic thing is like, they're not in the mood. Well, there's 1,000,010 different things. They're not men. We can just start tugging and
Right.
we can usually get something to happen. But
we're microwaves, they're crock pots, right?
Right. Exactly. And yeah, it just, we're saying this to kind of be funny, and it is funny, but there is a serious aspect behind this too. It's just so many people are they just don't have this communication, and it shows in all aspects of their life. They're not well-balanced people. You can just kind of pick it out. I mean, me and my wife, we joke around. We like, I don't know, this is kind of sick maybe, but we always think about like, we don't have a ton of friends, but we think about like certain friends we have and their sex life. And you can just tell that there's nothing there. And we're not making fun of them, but we're like, I would just, wonder what do they actually do? Because I don't know, man. You can just read people, and maybe that's just us being weirdos or sensitive to energy or whatever. But it's like you just see people and like, why are they together? What is the point of this? Right. Is it just for money? Is it just to keep up the facade? Like, I don't know. It's amazing to me.
You can always tell the woman who is getting nailed on a regular basis. This may come off as sexist, and I am literally speaking only about heterosexual women. But heterosexual women tend to function better when they have good sex on a regular basis. They tend to be far more stable, far more grounded, far more connected with their intuitive ways. And like I see my wife, like she'll have these spurts of like literally being psychic, and I think it's because that, she has relative balance throughout all parts of her lives, including a sex life, Now, if you're not having enough sex, if you don't think you're having enough sex, man, it is because she isn't getting anything out of it. If she was getting something out of it, I guarantee you, at least 10 times a month, if not about 15 to 19, which is where I roll at, you'll have sex, man. But you gotta put her first. You have to make her the queen, and it will pay dividends. I cannot emphasize that enough.
Oh, it's so true. It's like anything with a return on it. It's it's like a savings account in a way. Like if you're not putting enough into it, you're not going to see those numbers go up. You're not going to get what you're looking for. And again, you got to balance it out. You can't just be like selfish with it, but let the love flow, man.
And so that comes to like, okay, matter of fact, I was talking with our friend Ghost last night. And one of the things I told him that one of the things I really love about him is that he's taller than I am, 6'4", 6'5", got a big, massive beard, drives a big rig, knows his way around an AR-15, and he's an empath. Okay. He's connected with his heart, and he is aware of other people's feelings. Now, You break in his house, he's going to drop you just like any other regular dude, right? But he is connected with his feelings, and it makes his day to day better, you know. And so that's where that toxic masculinity comes in, where you have to treat your wife like an object. You have to keep your thumb on her, and you can't show any kind of intimacy or emotion with a woman. And I think those days are gone. I literally think that we're moving from one age to another, and healthy masculinity where, chop wood, change tires, and go in and connect with your wife about something that is important to her and bang one out. I think that's where we're at, man. Like being authentic.
I think so too. And touching on the masculinity thing, the phrase toxic masculinity gets used way too much, I think. Because like you said, there is a healthy level of masculinity. And from my experience, women prefer more masculine men. They don't want feminine little soy boys running around. And I'm not making fun of people, but I am a little bit. And like you have to, a woman wants to feel protected. I mean, anyone does, but there has to be that like level of masculinity where it's like, you're not going to fuck with this guy, but he's still going to, take care of all the emotional aspects as well. And it's funny you brought up Ghost. He messaged me probably about a week or two ago, and we were going, I was just kind of in like a dark hole. So like, he is someone that is really in tune with his emotions. He just texted me out of the blue. I hadn't talked to him in a few days, and he was like, just checking in. I felt like basically a disturbance in the force. And yeah, it's just, I need to work on that more, because I get all these feelings and stuff like that too, but I usually shut down with it and I try to block it out. So that's something I'm working on. But yeah, there has to be, everything there's that balance between the masculine and the feminine.
Yeah.
And so like, this is something like, let's talk about this a little bit and dive into it and pick it apart. Cause they say that, everyone has the divine masculine and divine feminine. So as men, what does that divine feminine look like? Because that's something that a lot of people, I think, are not getting right. It's not saying you have to just be in touch with your emotions. To me, it's more like you can appreciate the beauty in life. You can have that more artistic outlook and be more sensitive to things. But at the same time, it doesn't mean you have to, for any lack of a better word, be a fairy or whatever. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. You need those men who will hold the line and keep the unwashed masses from kicking in the city wall, But at the same time, you don't need assholes showing up at home and like beating all the kids ruthlessly. I think, honestly, being in touch with your feminine side can be as simple as being a good listener and a good communicator. And you've already won right then and there.
Mm-hmm.
If you're able to pull your ego back, pull your head over your ass, however you want to put it, and actually listen to what she is saying, you've won. You have fucking won.
Yeah, no, it really is. And yeah, and just, I think a healthy part of relationships are fighting. And when I say fighting, I mean arguments, you know what I mean? Like there has to be, we all, myself included.
We like to call it intense fellowship.
Yes. So like, I'm very stubborn. I'm set in my ways in a lot of things, but as I grow older, I'm learning, to just shut the fuck up once in a while and just let her vent and tell what's on her mind. And just, again, this is something I'm working on, but it's like, you don't need to, and this is kind of where like that masculinity part, or maybe the right hand brain, I don't know what it is, the right side, where it's like, I want to come up with a solution right away. Sometimes you just have to shut the fuck up, give her a hug, and just let that moment pass.
Yeah. So I think I'm like 15 years older than you. And I'm still working on that because as men, the left brain, we want to solve your problem. Dry up those tears up, buttercup, and let's move forward. Like I cannot stand to watch a woman cry. And I am having to become okay with that because my wife uses it as a vent to release pressure. And I need to be more gentle with her in those moments and just allow that process to occur instead of being, the old Northeast Texas redneck that I am. And like, oh, I can't handle this. Let me solve your problem right now. And 9 times out of 10, Niko, I am noticing that women actually don't need you to solve their problems. Newsflash, guys. They're pretty fucking smart themselves and they can solve most of their problems. They just need you to listen.
Exactly. And like I said, it's like, don't tune out, actually listen, but just shut up. That's my biggest thing. It's like, I want to just chime in or, oh, well, let's do this. It's like, no, just take it back a notch. Let her talk, let her get it all out. And then just be a shoulder to cry on. Really, really, at the end of the day, listen. And when that phase is over, then it's time to talk and whatever, then open your mouth. But
right.
It really is amazing. And this is something, I'll be honest, I'm struggling with all the time because I want results. As laid back as I can be very intense too. And it's like, all right, well, let's solve this. Well, let's figure this out. Let's do that. Well, why did this happen? And that's something I'm trying to just take it back and just chill out and be more. And that's my problem too, is like, I like to perform. I like to do those things, but I am not very open to like being hugged. I wasn't raised that way. So this is something I'm trying to work on too, is like being more receptive to touch and like that emotional stuff and things like that, because I have no problem. I will please my wife all day long and not expect anything in return. But it's like, sometimes I'm not receptive to like that intimacy as much. So that's something I'm working on and trying to figure out how to deal with that. But
yeah,
it goes back to just shutting up and just kind of letting life happen,
Yeah. Sometimes as men, we just need to stand there and let that beautiful woman drape herself on you. Okay. You can do it, man. I know you can.
Mm-hmm.
But like you said, it's a learning phase. Like I literally had nobody tell me any of this in my first marriage. And, it failed. And 99% of the reason it failed was because of my bonehead ass. I'll take that hit. And, having that failure and, having to put my tail between my legs, I had to look at myself and say, okay, my current personality is not working for me. It's failing me miserably. So that's one of those moments where like, that assertiveness, that let's get results needs to kick in, and you need to make adjustments, because we all have little blind spots in our personality, and these little things hinder us from getting the utmost out of life. And I think you and I are both in that phase where we're slowly but surely cutting through the nonsense that isn't working. And it can be a long, drawn out process with some things. And I just hope that younger men might hear this and get on with that process a little earlier than you. You're still a very young man. And yeah, so I think that's probably enough as far as like, preaching to the gentleman a little bit. I come up with something silly to talk about. related to cryptids.
Yeah, and
Okay.
just one final closing thing on that is just intimacy in general. So like, I didn't grow up seeing any intimacy. My parents never hugged. My parents never kissed. I never saw any of that. So to me, that was like weird. If I saw like my cousins hugging each other and stuff, it creeped me out. So that's something that like, it's just something I've had to kind of work on as an adult. And like, of course you have to be appropriate. You can't be like exposing children to nonsense and whatnot, but like just having a healthy level of intimacy. I try to just hug more and just be more open to that stuff. So yeah, to any younger guys that are like, trying to be tough and think that machismo shit is like what women want. It's not. Like, they want it a little bit, but you still have to be a sensitive, decent human being. But yeah, we can jump into cryptids.
There's a time and a season for everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like when the firewood needs to be cut, they want you to be a man and get out there and get it taken care of, And there's a time for, intimacy after the kids are laid down and you're sitting down, going throughout the day. Being intertwined is a great way to do that,
Mm-hmm.
Now the cryptids.
And that's what I was going to say. Just like, I want my kids to, like, when they look back at their childhood, be like, oh yeah, mom and dad loved each other.
Right.
That I want that to be something, because that's not something me and my brother grew up with at all.
I don't think many people our age are like the parents from 1980 forward. I just don't think it's there. Like I never saw it in my household at all.
Yeah. And it's just one of those things that I think that is the paradigm shift, or the new consciousness coming out. It's like, I just want my kids to know that they came from a loving household, because I think that will, not that was a big cause of problems in me and my brother's life, but just, it was always cold. I want the house to be warm. I don't want it to be cold. But that can kind of segue into some of the cryptid talks and things like that. Is the house I grew up in was always cold, not just from my parents. It was literally cold. There was dead animals all around it. We heard voices, and yeah.
Yeah, nothing says "fuck me, baby" like a house surrounded with dead animals.
Right. Yeah, it was weird, man. Just, you'd see, we would get a dead possum under the porch almost like every other month. There'd just be another dead one under there, or just weird crows would die. It was just odd stuff.
Yeah.
But
yeah. So I was thinking of, I had mentioned last night with Ghost that I thought I had an original idea about writing Sasquatch erotica novels, right?
Mhm.
Because I'm obsessed with Sasquatch, And so I went on Amazon to see if there were any already out on the market. And sure enough, all these women have been writing all these stories about taking a walk through the woods and getting thrown down by a big hairy Sasquatch and him laying 10 miles of pipe in her. Okay.
Yeah. And
why
and
are women writing this shit? Okay. Because they're not getting something taken care of.
Right. It all goes back to that. But it's just so interesting with Sasquatch, because, oh man. Well, let's talk about the erotic stuff, because I remember growing up seeing when I was like a teenager, I would like sneak onto like Cinemax and stuff like that. And I remember distinctly there was like I fucked Bigfoot or something like that. So it's the idea has been out there. So
yeah. So I was thinking, okay, if I had to go down on Dog Woman or Sasquatch, I know my answer. What would your answer be? Dog Woman or Sasquatch?
Probably Sasquatch, just because in my opinion, it'd be closer to a human. I don't know what Dog Woman would be like.
Well, considering that, regular dogs have 8 to 10 tits, that might be interesting.
Yeah, that's true. That's
That's
true.
a lot of knobs to turn, for you
Yeah.
engineer types.
Definitely wouldn't run out of options, But
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on the dog man, though? Do you think it's more of a werewolf, or do you think it's more of just a natural creature out there? Because I hear
Well,
conflicting reports.
well, let me just say, a couple years ago, my wife and I were driving south to Florida, and we were in the middle of Nowheresville, South Carolina on I-95. And in front of us, probably, I don't know, 40 yards, pretty damn close, a fucking monstrous dog with a back about as high as a mule fucking ran across the interstate, completely across in like 7 or 8 lopes. And my very Christian wife looked at me and she was like, "What was that?" And I mean, it was all I could do to keep my eyes, partially on the road, but look this thing darting into the woods. I think that thing was a dog man or dog woman, and it was frightening how big it was, and the way that it loped seemed odd, and it looked like it had, like, if Dogman can have mange, this thing had it. It wasn't like completely covered in fur. And then in southeast Oklahoma, real close to where I grew up, I haven't seen this with my own eyes, but allegedly there's a Native American cemetery when they started making them bury their dead, because that's not the traditional Native way. There's some stones that allegedly say killed by the dogmen during a skirmish or something. So, and I've been in the woods, and I'm very comfortable in the woods, Niko, but just because, the way I grew up, like literally in the woods all the time by myself. I'm not scared of the woods, but I've had a couple of moments where it's like every hair stands up, something's not right, and you get the fuck up out of there as fast as you can. And it's either, a wood booger or it's a dog man. That's kind of my feeling about it.
Yeah, and it's so true. I mean, you were probably in the woods a little more than me, but I grew up hunting and in the woods too. I mean, I've walked up to a black bear in a garbage can before, and yeah, you're shocked and you're like, okay, and you just kind of walk away. It's not the same level of like fear, but like it's like this primal instinct. When I don't know 100% if I had a Sasquatch encounter, but it was something on this trail that my wife and my son, like everyone felt it. The energy shifted when we walked around this corner. We heard something in the woods, didn't see anything, and it's again, your hairs stand up and you just know something instinctually is not right.
Yeah.
And like
I've been in the presence of evil men, right? Like a uncle of mine by marriage ended up being put on death row at Texas. I was basically raised by a bunch of criminals, and I was the black sheep because I've never been arrested and never really done too much to get arrested, right? And, being around criminals, people who would kill you for nothing, it's not the same as what I experienced a couple of times in the woods. The level of fear, it just gets, like you said, it's very primal. It activates the reptilian part of your brain. You get moving.
Mm-hmm. And it makes you wonder, like, so I've been like rereading Lord of the Rings because I'm going to be doing a series with Random Randy kind of diving into the Tartarian aspects of Lord of the Rings and things like that. But there's a scene where they kind of, there's the men of the woods, you know, there's the wild men.
Mm-hmm.
And they're very primitive sounding when their speech and everything, but it just makes you wonder, like, is Sasquatch, because I kind of believe this, it's just another either offshoot. I think they're mostly human. You know what I mean? I don't believe that they are like an ape in the woods, because when you hear all these reports, they find hair samples and they put them in, and it's always contaminated with human DNA. And it's like, well, maybe it's not contaminated. Maybe it just is human DNA. And it's just the way I look at it. And I want to hear your opinion on this too. It's like, I feel like if Sasquatch was just some type of ape or something, and it proved society's version of evolution, we would hear about it everywhere. They would use anything to discredit God, to prove that their version of evolution is true. I think it's kind of the opposite. I would say that they were probably some type of human that just got away from society and actually adapted more or evolved more into something that could handle being out in those woods. So
I think it's something even more incredible than that. I think they have evolved to a point where maybe they can manipulate scalar waves and like go in and out of dimensions. You know, a lot of people report orbs. A lot of people report UFOs before or after a Sasquatch sighting. So they kind of a lot of times get linked into the phenomenon as a singular thing. But I think it's different groups that understand something that we're unaware of. I think it has to do with the holographic nature of what this is. And, you know, I was talking yesterday with Ghost, in the position that I wanted to make with him is that I don't look into all the current flavor of the month rabbit trails, because I inherently know that, okay, if you're not aware, you live in a prison planet. If you're not aware of who you are and how amazing you are, then this is a prison planet, and they are loosing you by day and by night. Something is feeding on you. Okay. If you are aware and you know that you are an eternal being, you have never been born and you have never died, that you have merely went through one or several lifetimes in this meat suit because you were either tricked or cajoled into it. If you are aware of how powerful you are, then you no longer look out there. You're constantly looking inside yourself and want to explore those realms. I've told you that I've recently had a couple of meditations, one walking and then one a little more traditional, that were mind blowing. And I literally don't want to pay any attention to any of the rabbit trails, rabbit holes, none of it. And so I think these individuals, aliens, ultra terrestrials, Sasquatch, I think they live in the free land, wherever that is, and that they can come and go as they please here. And I'm not married to that idea, but it's the one I prefer at this particular moment, and I reserve the right to change my mind.
No, I agree with that. And it's like, I think, if whatever they are, they have evolved to that point or come to the awareness that they can do that. And I don't know,
you have experienced the shadow beings, and I think you've also experienced the light beings at one point, right? I have experienced both, And I see Sasquatch in that kind of same family as the shadow people, the light beings. Now I never had a light being speak to me, but I have had something work on my body, you know. So for what that's worth. But they're fucking interesting.
It is. And I always wonder too, is, like you said, are they just the same thing? Like if you're out in nature and you happen to see a shadow thing, is it just going to present itself as a Sasquatch or something that might look like it would fit in that environment? You know what I mean? Or it just depending on your mind frame or whatever it is you're receptive to at that time.
Right.
Because growing up seeing a shadow being in the room as a young kid, 11, 12 years old, you expect to see that. You know what I mean? If that makes any sense. Like that made sense to me. If I saw a Sasquatch standing in my room at 11, 12 years old at 2:00 in the morning, it would be very out of place. Same thing with like seeing a shadow in the woods, which it wouldn't really be out of place, but seeing a hairy animal might be a little more suitable for that environment. So I always wonder, are they the same thing? And this is interesting. It's just popped in my head. When my son was 2, this is before, I've always been into Sasquatch, but I never really dived into it deep until I started doing podcasting and stuff and had my experience, which I didn't know at the time was one, but he was about 2 years old and we were shopping around and we were at this like little store and they had Bigfoot ornaments, the standard, like the Bigfoot walking thing. And they were little Christmas ornaments. And he looked at it and he kept calling it a gorilla angel. And we just thought it was like the funniest thing. He kept calling it the gorilla angels. And now thinking about that, like, it just kind of, again, how do you explain something like that? He didn't know anything about Bigfoot.
I think he was right on point. I think that, it's one of those moments where I know you believe this as well, that kids can see more than we can because they haven't had the level of conditioning yet. Yeah. So to him, that was probably a very good descriptor.
Yeah.
See the Chewbacca in his as his light body, versus us go, oh shit, it's fucking Sasquatch.
Right. And that's interesting that you say with the light body too. I'm jumping back to Lord of the Rings, and I'm sorry my ADD is off the charts today, but in Lord of the Rings, when there's a scene where everyone knows the scene where Frodo has the ring and he's getting to Rivendell. He's been stabbed by the Nazgul and he's like in and out of that shadow world. And he sees the elf, and he sees the elf in his true form, and it's just a light being. And it's just, again, I think Tolkien was onto so much stuff. Like these elves, they can walk in this earth, but they are actually light beings. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas men are of the earth in a sense. So yeah, it's very interesting, all this stuff. And then I was going to ask you, me and my wife have had 2 experiences with cryptids. I'm going to call them cryptids, but we can't explain what they actually are. One, and I don't know if you've heard, I think I did a bonus Halloween episode or something where I talked about this. I've never really talked about it before that or after, but we were sitting in a parking lot and we happened to look up at one of the big like spotlights they have there. And for just a quick second, I saw like a boot floating in the air and what looked like a cape. And it just like pulled the cape over itself and just vanished. And she saw it too. And, we were trying to convince ourselves maybe it was some type of bird, but the best way I can describe it is if you've ever seen those like Batman movies where he's standing on the building and then he pulls his cape over and then he's just gone. It was very similar to that, but it was floating right above this light. And we both happened to catch it right at the right time. Never seen it again. We've gone back to that parking lot roughly around the same time, even the same time of year too, just to see if it was like something. But
so that kind of harkens to the idea that there's these overlays, that there's a civilization on top of ours. And that sometimes when we see like shadow people walking through, well, like my father-in-law, he has Lewy body dementia, and he sees people who aren't there regularly. Like he's had them open the door to his shop, run along the width of it, and then disappear before they get to the opposite wall. And I told him that I actually think what's happening is that the Lewy body is causing dimethyltryptamine to drip from his pineal gland and is enabling him to see in the overlay on top of this realm. And of course, I can't prove that in a court of law, but some of the things that he experiences, like he was fixing the plumbing in their bathroom one day, and a person just popped up on the floor with him, was telling him what to do, the proper way to do it. And he did it that way, and it solved the fucking problem. So what is that?
Yeah. And that goes back to like little kids seeing like imaginary friends and things. Again, I believe through all the heavy metals they put in the food, the water, everything else that they put into our bodies, I think it's all done on purpose to just shut that off. Now, I just find it weird. Most people I talk to don't really have too many memories before 4 years old, give or take. Some people have little things here and there, but for me, I don't remember anything before 4 years old.
I don't either.
So there's got to be something that and I don't believe it's natural. I believe it's man-made and manufactured to do that on purpose, because that's right around the time you start going into the school system.
Right.
So with your in-law there, your father-in-law, is it just that wall, that layer is kind of coming down, like whatever it is?
I think so. Now he sees the traditional shadow people like you and I have experienced. And recently he probably 2 months ago now, he was suffering some sort of kidney failure, and so rushed to the hospital. About the second day, he wasn't doing real good. He was trying to refuse treatment. The Lewy body kind of really disorients him, and if he's not in his home, he becomes very agitated. And he's a strapping dude. He could take care of himself. And he had a moment very much like the experience you had, where you turned over and like molecules of your body were being sucked in. He said to himself, "I'm just so sleepy," right? And on his chest, this black hole opened up, and he could feel like, he said it sounded like a vacuum, and that all the air in the room was rushing into the center of this hole. And he said he could feel himself, and he heard an audible voice tell him, "If you fall asleep, you're going to die." And he got it in his head that it also meant if he went into that hole, that he was done for. And so he said that he still had things he wanted to do, and he just tried to stay awake, and eventually that thing closed. And he said he was so tired after fighting it that he just collapsed and fell asleep. So what the fuck is that, man? Your experience, very unique, much earlier in your life. And here he is closer to the end of his life, and he's having a very similar experience. So what is that?
I don't know. And again, after thinking about that experience and just trying to figure out the whole scenario of everything, like I had my stepson in the room, he was on the floor, And it's just a weird, I don't know how to explain it. You know, I don't know if there was something with his energy, because shortly after we started experiencing the nonsense we're going through with that situation now.
Right.
And I you know, so is it just like I tend to look at it as like a negativity, like just a negative entity, just trying to suck you into that almost looshing thing, where it's like it wants to get you to fall into it. You know, it literally trying to feed off of you. And for whatever reason, I just happened to wake up at the right time and catch it. Like, and I would almost go out on a limb and say, like, people that suffer from depression probably have this thing sucking on, like, no pun, you know, sucking their life force out, but they just can't see it.
Right.
You know?
Now, there's another component that I want to bring in here, and we probably got about 15 minutes before we need to wrap it up. When you say about 2:14, so awareness, right? So the aforementioned abstract dreamer, she's in a dream group of these women who are attempting to do different dream experiments. And a couple from that group, including myself, had a situation last week where we felt something like, and in my experience, it felt like a little worm-like thing was trying to get to my solar plexus. Right? I literally felt like an energy flipping around in front of my chest. And I immediately says, no, you know, this is off limits. You know, I'm protected. Right? And those women had a very similar experience. And I had told Abby, and they had told Abby their experiences. So there wasn't any cross-fertilization. So it's all very unique. I think there's just the ability to be aware of subtle changes of energy in your environment varies from person to person. I think you and I are very, very sensitive to subtle changes, and it so much to the point where, like, something that may seem like a nothing burger to somebody else is like a serious event to us, you know, because of just the sensitivity of feeling energies. I think that has something to do with it. But in the past, I have suffered with short bouts of depression, right? And my father-in-law, he certainly has as well. And so, but I don't think you have to. I think those things come to feed. I don't think they necessarily have to stay. You know,
right? And I agree with that. And a couple things on that. Well, one, they always say, like, oh, he's got a black cloud following him around. You know, have you heard that, where people say that? So I always wonder, is that part of it? Is it just like this entity that's draining your life force? But going back to the worm in your solar plexus, that just, I mean, we see that symbolism all the time, whether it's in the Alien movies, the thing bursting out of someone's chest. You know, people talk about parasites being inside you. What's his face there? Emmanuel Kingman. I don't know if you follow him. He talks about that, how you got to clear your parasites out. And, you know, people hear that and they think, oh, like worms, you know, like your dog has worms or whatever. But I do believe that they're more of a spiritual nature. These things that can just, you kind of either let them in or they get in somehow. I don't know how it happens, but you go through. I mean, I've had experiences where just, and nothing too serious, but like you just go someplace that has either a memory for you, like a childhood experience or whatever, and you come back, you just don't feel right. And you have to kind of do some of that light work or cleanse yourself and get that out of you. So it's interesting too. And the fact that these people, these women in the dream group too, because from my understanding, they're kind of making a place where they can all go there, right? And meet up in the astral plane.
Yeah.
I mean, if there's some type of entity that wants to prevent that from happening, why not infect them in the dream world or attack them there?
Yeah.
And it's very interesting. And I say interesting a lot to make myself sound smarter, but it's just, I don't know what else to say. I just try to take all this in and just try to piece it together in my head. But are you part of that dream group too?
No, that particular group is all women. Now there's another group that Abby is leading that's going through a couple of these books.
Mm-hmm.
And this book is really interesting. It's written as fiction, but it's understood to be about an actual dream group in Russia that the KGB tried to suss out and murder everybody because they were affecting reality. And that's why Abby is trying to teach a group of people how to do that. And kind of one of the beginner to intermediate abilities is to all meet up lucid at a specific space, exchange information, and bring it back in the physical and be able to share it again to, prove that they met in the dream realm, And I think all of that is possible. I think the only thing that a person has to do in order to be able to do something like that is to wipe away the layers of conditioning related to matter, and Abby's certainly further down the road than I am in that. But I will say that in my experience, when I had the couch fold up and sit on the floor and I walked through it, that certainly helped me divorce myself from a lot of that physicality, kind of opened my mind up.
Right. Yeah. It's amazing. And you always wonder, like, with people that you see in your dreams, or like if someone tells you had a dream about them, or there's like a synchronicity and shortly after they're talking to you, it's fascinating. I haven't been able to really, this is something I want to try to work on, is kind of making that dream space now that I've kind of heard that. And because I do go back to a lot of reoccurring places, so I want to try to start manipulating it and things like that. But I was going to say dream cartography, and it's just another memory. I'm sure you probably heard this story too, but I was sitting down in the shower meditating one day, and I was holding on to a couple different rocks, and I just wasn't really meditating. I was just letting the water hit me and just like really hearing that like sound of the water hitting in the shower. And I just started saying my wife's name in my head over and over again, and just kind of like talking to her in my mind. And sure enough, a couple minutes later, she comes upstairs and opens the bathroom door. And this was early in the morning, so the kids weren't even awake yet. This is probably like 5:45, 6 a.m. I start doing this, and she comes upstairs and she's like, "What did I come up here for?" And I just snapped at her and was like, "You came." And she was like, "What are you talking about?" And I was like, "I was calling you up here." And it's just, it's interesting, man. Again, could be a coincidence. I don't tend to believe in coincidences, but I do believe we're very capable of telepathy. I think all these things have just been stripped away. And like you said, we just have to scrape off those layers of conditioning and, possibly the physical crap they put in us. But I think we are able to do all this stuff very naturally.
Yes, 100. So I'll kind of end with this, I guess, since we're getting close. This morning, as I was doing a meditation related to moving into my new life, right? And in this particular meditation, you go into the blackness that is behind your eyelids, and you connect with it all around your body, 360. And before you know it, you have a Mandelbrot set fractaling in before your eyes, and energy is going to start moving in your body in very unique ways. But I had a little glimpse of something. And I don't know if it's supposed to happen this year or maybe next year, but I saw everybody, like a group of East Coast podcasters. We were camping somewhere. I don't know if it was New York State or Pennsylvania or where. And it was very early in the morning. And of course, I was the first one up because I'm that old dude that gets up before everybody. And I was meditating. And all of a sudden, energy shifted. And, a couple of you guys had cameras on and these things come out. And so, you never know what's going to happen if you sit around the campfire and maybe intentionally meditate on some of the things that we're constantly talking about. A CE5 situation.
Yeah. And I haven't had like a very vivid image of that, but I have had that thought that we are all going to meet up at some point and some magic will happen, whether it's just an epic podcast or
right. Or
just good times. But
exactly.
Again, it's like, it doesn't take that many people. And the problem is with a lot of people is like, they can talk the talk, but they don't really want to walk the walk type thing. So like you get a bunch of people practicing yoga together. Half of them are not, everyone's meditating, but half of them are thinking of something else. Half of them are doing the other thing. I think if you got even a small group of people, 5-10 people all together with that intention set on that, you could probably really see some shifts in reality.
Sure. And with that, I think that's a perfect time to end it. Niko, thank you for coming on. I mean, we covered some ground today, brother.
We got a lot out there. I hope people find this informative, and is joking as we were with the eating pussy and everything. It is an important thing that I think, if anything, can help people just better their relationship. And that goes back to working on yourself and looking within. If you can, you need that root chakra to be strong. You need that strong foundation. You can't build a house without a foundation. I mean, you can, but you know what I'm saying.
Yep.
It's you gotta, yeah. It was a fun episode, man. And thank you for
for sure. We'll have to do it again real soon. And that will conclude this. Take those hot tips and have a better life, folks.